Hi, I'm Mel,
And I'm Janelle.
and this is the Murder Mamas.
Hello.
Welcome.
For some reason, I forgot that we said our names for a brief moment. And when you started, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta say my name. Like, I haven't done
What's my name?
like I haven't been doing this for like 3 years.
We're over 100 episodes in,
Yeah, that's
doing
embarrassing.
the same shit over and over.
I know, that's really embarrassing.
Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about Jonestown, the women behind the massacre. And I'm kind of thinking that everybody knows about Jonestown. I didn't know deep about Jonestown, but I knew of Jonestown.
I felt the same way. And then last night I was folding laundry and I was watching this and I was taking some mental notes and things
Hmm.
like that. And Chris was like,
Yeah.
just around. And I was like, do you want to watch about like Jonestown? And he was like, what's that?
He
He
didn't
didn't
know?
know.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, you don't know what Jonestown is? And he
I
was
mean,
like,
it was in like the 70s,
yeah.
so,
And I
but
was like, it's like where the saying, don't
yeah.
drink the Kool-Aid comes from.
Right.
Or
Everybody
like
knows
they're
that.
drinking the Kool-Aid. And he was like, oh.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you didn't know? He's like, I mean, I guess but no, I don't want to watch anything about this.
But no,
Like,
I'm
He was
good.
like, this seems morbid. Bye. Like, what kind of?
Yeah. So we start off, and this is one that goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth too. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to write a fucking letter and be like, please just go chronologically, because my brain cannot handle the back and forth function. Okay, it just doesn't work for me. So I write
It
things
is so
down.
funny because you hate them so much, and I want you to know that as I'm watching them at home and it's switching back and forth from present to like the past, I'm thinking, wow, Mel must have hated
I
this.
was getting very upset.
I know. I
And we only stay, we glimpse back for like 5 seconds, and then all of a sudden we're back to the other part. And I'm like, why did we have to even do that? just stop. So, okay, here we
I
go.
have listened to the whole recording of like
Oh, did you?
what, yeah, like years and years ago. I
I didn't even
listened to
think
the
to do
whole
that.
recording. I don't remember a ton of it,
Yeah.
but I remember it being real creepy. Like
Oh, yeah.
the whole entire thing
Oh,
I listened to.
okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I don't
I
remember.
don't
Again,
know.
this was like 5 years ago.
Okay.
So
So we kind of open, I'm just going to say like we open here and then we jump around, you know the drill, you know my brain by now. It starts
no, I
off.
don't.
That's true, nobody does. Still haven't figured that shit
What would
out.
you do?
The doctors are like, oh,
Oh, this is a new thing.
whoa, she's on.
Never seen this one before.
That's me. Okay, so we start off November 1978. NBC News is trying to find out what happened in South America. So they're like in there and they're like, we've been here for 30 hours and we're trying to figure out what has happened in this camp.
So this is post
Yeah,
massacre, like
like
post
after it happened.
suicides. Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and then that's all we see. And then it like jumps to like introducing Jim Jones and his wife.
and it talks about the foundation
Right.
of the People's Church.
Yes. So the Reverend Jim Jones and his wife, who is that Carolyn or is that
Um,
Marcelin?
Marcelin.
Marcelin, okay. And his wife Marcelin, they get married and like before all this stuff happens. And she says, like, I was so in love with him and I just looked up to him and I just wanted to be with him and start this process together.
Okay, so right off the bat, I have a question. I'm not religious, so I need someone who is religious, not you, someone else to answer this for me.
I did go to a Catholic school.
Okay, well, so like there's school you have to do to like call yourself a
Correct.
clergy member,
Correct.
right? Like you have to be schooled to become like a pastor,
Yeah, a
or a
priest, a
priest,
pastor. They go into the seminary. They
a
have to hear a
reverend. Like you
reverend.
have to
Yes.
go to like theology school,
Yeah.
right?
My dad wanted to become a priest, and he was in doing his training and decided, no, it's not for me. I'm going to become a cop. So, yes, you cannot just call yourself one.
Is that like So he presumably like went through this school to become a reverend.
Maybe. I don't know for sure if he did.
It wasn't clear to me.
It
I'm like,
wasn't
did he
clear.
just like self-title
I think he's
reverend?
self-titled. I'm guessing he's self-titled. That's my guess. I could be completely wrong. Call me out if I am. But yeah, I think maybe he may have gone to like a church and copied whatever the Reverend did from there, but I don't think he had any formal schooling done.
Okay.
It was what my take was on. So we learn that what's the thing called?
The People's Church?
The first People's Temple or whatever church.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he starts this and he wants to help people and he wants to have every race and every type of person, socially, economical, high, low, poor people, rich people. He wants everybody needs to be included.
Well, you need to mention the time period. So this is in the 60s. So that's like a big deal.
Which is a big deal. I was really surprised. I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that.
Yeah. So the initial like start of the church, temple, whatever,
quote,
is really rooted in like social justice.
Yes.
They don't start with Jonestown in South America. Like that's not where it starts.
No.
It starts like
in Indiana.
Much smaller in Indiana. And it also starts with their family, right?
Right.
Because they had one biological child, Stephen. And then they had adopted like a rainbow of children.
That's what they call it.
They were that is their terminology, not mine.
Yep.
They were the first white couple to adopt a black child in Indiana. Yeah. And that was in the 60s. Yeah. Like early 60s.
Mm-hmm. And then they adopted a kid from Asia as well.
Correct.
Yeah. And then they had their biological son.
I think they had like 5 kids total.
Yeah, I think they did, but they didn't mention about the kid. It was just their biological son is in a head talker in this, so he is still here and telling us about this, but I don't know about his other kids.
Okay.
I don't. So
maybe you need to cut this out.
What?
The biological son was way hot when he was young. It was like that one snip of him in the 70s, and I was like, holy shit.
I'm not getting that.
Still.
Not gonna happen. Did you feel the same way? Yeah, I did. I saw that too. I was like, oh, okay. I joined that church. All right. And so then we it seriously goes back and forth and it confuses my brain. But we meet Jim's girls right off the bat. We hear about them more later, but they tell us about his girls like right off the bat.
Which I thought was weird too, because you're going to introduce them later in more depth. So why are you telling me about them now?
And then they go back to, So.
Oh, also one thing I want to mention in the Indiana stage of this church temple, Marcelin, his wife, is seen as like the mother to everyone. Yes. Like she
is beloved.
Correct. And really loves that. But to just touch a little bit more on them having kids of all different colors.
Sure.
His son specifically says, like, he was racist.
Yeah.
And all of it was for show. And I was like, wow, like a total narcissist.
Right.
Like,
when they said that they adopted I was like, wow, that's really amazing because of the time period that they're in. That is fucking great. Like, you're starting a church because you want people to you want to help them. But then he was like, nah, that's not what my father was.
Well, and I kind of got the idea that they did want to help people initially.
I think they did too.
I don't think that they saw, they didn't have plans to have it be what it ended up being.
No, they didn't in the beginning.
I genuinely don't think so.
I don't think so either.
So.
Yeah. So we meet Carolyn, Maria, Annie, and then Marcelin. Those are Jim's main girls.
Okay, well, Marcelin's his wife.
Well, I mean, she's a main I'm just saying that's how they introduced the girls. So I wrote down their names. I was just gonna say we meet Stephen. He's the son, and he's 19 years old at the time
Of the
of
massacre.
the massacre. Right now, he's what, like 40, 50? I don't know. I don't do math in my head. He was still kind of hot. Yeah. So what he was saying is that his mom saw the beauty in his dad and wanted him to be better. Like, she was like, I see this man, he is so perfect, and I want to make him better, and I want to build this church with him. Like, she was set on doing that.
She was a fix-a-hoe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was her goal, was
Yeah.
to like fix someone.
Yeah.
He does also mention that the time for his mom to leave was when they were in Indiana.
Yeah.
And once they left, well, I'm sort of jumping the gun, but
Yes, yeah.
Once they left Indiana, like time was up.
Yeah. That was said, I think his son was saying everything Jim did was for show. Like, everything,
Well, that was
was
like
for
about
show.
the adopting those kids.
He was very dramatic over everything. And he had said God was calling him to recruit more people. So they ended up moving to Northern California, Redwood Valley, California, in spring of 1968. This is 10 years before the massacre. So the group was interracial and committed to faith. Carolyn wanted social justice, like now. She wanted to help people.
You used the wrong name.
Okay, well, what did I say? Carolyn?
Mm-hmm.
Marcelin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she wanted... No, I think it was Carolyn. No?
His wife was Martha.
Okay, Marcel, you're right. Okay. Yeah. And so in 1970, all the freedom of the races, they built this new society. They had recruited people that were released from the mental hospital to come stay with them. There were places for seniors because they didn't have anywhere to go, or they had somewhere to go, but they couldn't be living by themselves. So they brought in those seniors. They had a big ranch. They started with 141 people, and they just went from there.
So
These are the types of people they're recruiting.
At first, when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's so nice. Like, they're taking anyone. And then I was like, wait, no, they're preying on
the vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Like 1,000,000,000%.
Yeah.
And then I don't know where you are in your notes, but later they start opening like a church down in LA and in San Francisco.
Yeah, they opened several.
They are shipping people on buses to poor, like the projects and all these poor areas across the country to do recruitment.
Yeah.
They're literally just
taking people off the streets. Come join us. And everybody's like, this feels like loyalty and this feels like love. And this is amazing. Like, they all think that this is going to be great. That's how it starts.
Well, and I'm thinking, like, I don't know how to say this in a kind way. That's a lot of mixed personalities.
Yeah.
Living together.
Sure.
Like, what was the actual day-to-day like there?
Yeah.
You know, like...
Yep. I don't know. I would think that it wouldn't be all flowers and dandelions. Like, that's a lot of different mixes right in there.
Just personality-wise.
That's what I'm talking about, personality-wise. Yeah.
The way they were raised and their values and beliefs.
All different.
All very, very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and then we kind of meet Carolyn at this point and Jim. And what really sucks is that Jim takes his son on a road trip, and his son was like, this was really cool because I didn't get to see my dad a lot because he was busy being reverend and doing all that. So he was like, I thought it was a one-on-one time for me, and I thought it was really special. But we end up going to Carolyn's house, and I was told to sit on the couch and listen to them in the bedroom. And I was like, oh my God. I cannot imagine that. So he hears...
feel like a bad parent, just...
He hears everything that goes on.
Yeah, so Carolyn and Jim are sleeping together. And Carolyn leaves her husband and basically tells everyone that, like, Jim, she's fulfilling a need for Jim that Marcelin cannot meet anymore.
Sexually.
Correct. And so, like, him and Marcelin are so very much together in the eyes of the church.
Right.
But Carolyn is his mistress.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way to put it.
It is. I mean, it's true. And even the son was like, I didn't know if my mom knew about this, but she knew. She was aware of what was going on. Like, women aren't dumb. I'm not going to, like, we know what's going on.
Sometimes people bury their head in the sand, though.
Sometimes. That's true. I think she did look away for a while, but then she caught on after. I mean, this is not the only woman he's had an affair with, so...
So Carolyn tries to, like, recruit her family. Right. She has two other sisters.
Yeah.
And she, like, brings them to the church, and she does successfully recruit one, which is one of his other girls.
Yep. Yes.
And she was, like, young.
18. She graduated from high school and then moved to be with them.
Yeah. And she was going to school for nursing. And she comes into play a lot later.
She does. I was trying to find her name. Annie? Was it Annie? Annie.
Yeah, it's Annie.
Annie does that, yeah.
And then the other sister's like, nah, I don't think this is for me.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's kind of fucking weird.
A little weird, yeah. So, another point was, like, why would Marcelin stay with Jim? They were saying she could have left and took the children and been gone. Like, there wasn't anything keeping her. Like, he didn't have a hold on her like some other cults do.
Okay, well, I think you have to think that is a very 2024, 20...
Sure. Yeah, you're right.
Like 2000, like any time before
the
then.
70s, yeah.
At that point, women couldn't own land. They couldn't have a credit card without a husband.
Oh, shit, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, like, really... So sure, physically she could have left,
but she wouldn't have any children.
She wouldn't have nothing.
Wow.
What's her jobs? What's her credentials?
Yeah.
Would she be able to work? Like,
I didn't even think of that because I was like, bitch, get your kids and go.
No, you have to get permission from a man to open a bank account. Like, there's a lot of stuff women could.
I totally forgot.
Which is so sad, right?
That's really sad.
That was how many years ago?
Not that long ago.
Yeah.
Not that long ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So
I didn't think of that.
I don't think that's until like the 70s, I want to say, is when women get those some of those additional rights.
Yep.
So really, she couldn't have gone anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, so Rebecca was the other sister.
Yes. And she talks a lot throughout that. She's like one of the figureheads.
Yeah.
In the documentary.
Yeah. And, okay, so it says most people who go end up staying there. Like, they don't leave because they feel loyal to the church.
Well, and there's also some trickery.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? Like, he brings people, or people recruit and they bring people, and then their first service is like a healing service where he's basically faking like curing people of cancer and making them walk again.
There's one lady in a wheelchair with a bad hip, and there he's like, stand up!
The spinal injury.
Yeah, spinal.
And it reminds me of when I used to get like infomercials back in forever ago, and it would be like the Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
Like, the people are yelling, and it's just like...
It's all this, they're all like the same. Like, this is what I don't, like, all cults, they may start off differently, but, like, they all end up pretty much the same. Like, one guy, the head guy, gets crazy and, does his shit, and then everybody is like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, and I think it's just because it's the same formula every time, right? It's like one ruler, whether it's a man or a woman, who is just such a narcissist, getting unchecked power and attention, and they just run wild and go fucking nuts with it.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And then you just watch the downfall.
Yep.
Because It's not a world people should operate
No,
in.
it's not really. So then we are in LA in 1972, or the summer of 1974. Carolyn gets pregnant with Jim's child.
Mm-hmm.
And he names him Kima, which is the word Jim in the Hawaiian language.
He's not Hawaiian.
He's not Hawaiian. I was like, what does that have to do with anything? You don't have any church in Hawaii. Like, you've never been there. So I thought that was pretty funny. But that's what happened. And then we have Maria, who rose quick into leadership. Did I mention Maria before?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So she kind of rose quick into leadership and started doing tasks like that Jim wasn't doing. We find out Jim becomes a major drug addict.
Oh, yeah.
So the women, that's why this is called the women of Jonestown, is the women are the ones that are
Effectively running it.
running the show.
Yeah.
After he just
Becomes
full-blown
addict.
a full-blown addict. Yeah.
And at the same time, there's members of this church who are women who are not white, you know, people of color, who are like, why is this inner leadership circle only white people?
Right.
Men or women.
Yeah.
Like, we've been here longer. Why are we not getting the same sort of, so they're like, the veil is being lifted a little bit, you know. They're like, what the fuck is this, you know.
And an article comes out in August of 1977, 15 months before the massacre. They were interviewing former members, and they were talking about sexual abuse that happened. And Jim was like, oh, hell no, I don't want any part of this. So he up and left before the article was published. So, like, he wasn't there when all of this came out.
He goes to South America, right?
Yeah, he ran.
Yeah.
He just went, bye.
Well, because people are starting to pay attention.
Yeah.
Like
what's happening here?
And so they leave.
Yeah.
Like, him and
half
1,000?
I don't know. Not everybody goes with him.
Yeah.
Like, there are people that stay back. But yeah, in 1974, they bought the property at Jonestown. And
that's in Guyana.
And he presented it as like a vacation, like, town. Like, he built a compound for these people to come and stay, but like for vacation, but it wasn't really for vacation. He wanted them to stay there, you know, and work for him and do all these things and chores. They had to self-sustain, grow their own stuff, do all this stuff. So, they had dorms, they had a school, they had like a small like town area where they would like, it's a commune. Yeah. And so by the end of 1977, he had brought people from San Francisco over there, more people. And this is when Jim becomes a really bad addict.
Yeah.
So.
What drugs was he on? I don't think it ever said.
Propofol.
Oh, yes, that's right. Propofol.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how to say that, so I'm not going to know how to spell it, so I'm not going to write it down.
It's like a sedative, right?
Yeah. But I think he was taking other things, too, because we see pictures of, like, just pills, after, like, in his bedroom, and I'm like, you're taking more than just that. So he was kind of out of it for a while.
So then there's, like, interest, right, in what's happening in Jonestown and Guyana.
Yes.
Because I think it's Maria, her dad, is like, I can't talk to my daughter anymore. Right. Like, what is happening? And so she goes on the record and like puts something out where she's like, no, like, my dad can talk to me. Like, I'm here. I'm happy. Like, it's fine. And then Carolyn and Annie's parents go and visit Jonestown because there's like all of this media pressure. And so they go and visit Jonestown and they come back and have like a press conference. I'm like, what is happening? They have a press conference where they're like, it's a utopia. Like, it was fine. Everyone was happy. And it was a beautiful, wonderful experience. And the children are so happy and they don't go to school and they learn in the jungle. And like,
what? Yeah.
Okay.
And we have Maria, she has a son. And Tim is the father, and he wants to take him back. Like,
Correct.
he wants his child out of this.
That's why.
Yeah, and she was like, absolutely not. She does take good care of him. It was like it was mentioned, like, he was taken care of. He wasn't being abused or anything, like, that I could tell. But no, he shouldn't have been in that compound. Like, that was not a place for kids. So Jim was like, no, I'm gonna fight and not give you back that son. He's my son. He was like, that's my son. And you don't know if that's really your son because your wife's been fucking me and been fucking you at the same time.
Oh my God.
So, but I think it really was
Tim's
son. But that's what Jim was saying. He's like, you have no legal right because you don't even know. So I'm not giving it back.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They decided that the cops would come in to or he said that if the cops were to come into Jonestown to take the son, he would rather die.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he is increasingly, like, paranoid.
Yeah. And
it's like the usual story.
It's the same shit. It's the same shit, just a different name doing it this time.
So then this whole thing ends up where a senator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is like, okay, I'm going to take some news people and, like, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to see what the fuck's up.
Mm-hmm.
And so he does that and they visit the compound and then something happens like, everything is fine at the visit.
Yeah.
And then something I guess I'm leading up to, like, the massacre.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's pretty much where we're at.
Yeah.
Like,
so then something happens on the tarmac
mm-hmm.
of, like, this plane taking off and they end up, like, getting into a gunfight.
Yeah. I wasn't quite sure what, yeah.
And, like, someone gets shot, and it becomes, like, a whole fucking thing.
They were saying it was over drugs and stuff, but, like, that's not what it was.
Yeah, clearly not.
No.
Like, the senator was there to make sure everything was fine.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
So, after that gunfight, Jim
mm-hmm.
is like, all right, guys, it's time for us to all kill ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But you find out that this has been in the works for, like, a long time.
And it's not just Jim. Like,
yes, it's all the girls.
All the girls.
They're helping plan it. They're teaching people. They're telling them about it.
Mm-hmm.
But they had, like, ordered all of the cyanide already. Like, they had a plan. They had an idea of what they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
They had tested it on pigs to see if it would work, to know the dosage, like, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So then there's, like, a recording that starts playing. Or not a recording, but it's, like, a radio.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear Jim talking. Well, no. And you hear the girls talking.
Yeah.
So then you hear the girls talking. And they're basically saying, like, this is how we're going to do this. Like, they make a big batch of Kool-Aid with all this cyanide. And they're like, okay, now we're all going to start killing ourselves.
Yep.
And let's start with the children. So they are instructing people how to kill their kids.
The parents murdered their own children.
And they're saying to them, if they're crying, it's not because anything's hurting them. It's just that it tastes bad.
Yeah. Horrific. So November 18th is the day that this happened, 1978, just so we know. Yeah, so that's really bad.
And it goes on for, like, hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention that when the senator came down, there were people who had, like, passed him a note that were like, we don't want to be here anymore. Like, they were trying to defect from it. And that sort of spurred all of this, too. Because he's trying to prove that, like, this is such a wonderful utopia, but then there's people who are actively like, and it was like a family of 6 or 8 or something, and then another few people, which really, like, in the grand scheme of everyone, is not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
he should have just let them go.
Right. It would have been fine. Yeah. No attention would have been drawn. It just would have been like, okay, goodbye.
You know.
Well, they would say something, but, like,
you're in a different country. Like, who cares?
Nobody cares. So, and then we find out that Jim was shot.
No, so we find out that Jim and Annie they say that she was one of the last people alive. Yeah. Because Jim wouldn't drink the cyanide. He refused to kill himself.
Yeah.
After instructing over 900 people to do it and to kill their own kids and to feed, like, and he was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
No.
You sack of potato shit.
Potato.
Like, what?
Yeah.
So they presume, right? No one knows
No
for
one knows
sure.
for sure, yeah.
But they presume that Annie was one of the last people left alive.
Yep.
And that she shot Jim.
Because there was only one bullet hole, so.
Yes.
Yeah. So 918 people died on November 18th, 1978. 304 of them were kids. And 87 survived.
They survived?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if they survived, like they drank and they survived, or they just pretended to do it, but 87 people survived and got out.
Could you imagine being a, like, survivor?
Well, I mean, the kid, Stefan, what's his name? I mean, he's a survivor. He was in there.
Was he?
Yes.
Oh, I must
he
have missed
lived
that
with,
part.
like, yes.
I must have missed that
he
part.
got out when it was like.
Did he say, like, he pretended to drink
he
it,
didn't
or
say,
he didn't mention?
But he didn't mention it, but he's here, alive, like.
Because I think, like, if you drink it.
Yeah, you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
Like,
there's no, I don't know. I think if you drink a little, you probably throw up and have a really bad tummy ache, but I'm pretty sure the amount that they were giving everybody was they're going to drop dead. And that's another thing. So at the end, we see just forklifts picking up coffin or caskets after caskets and just stacking them up. And there's so many that they just have to, oh, it's a horrible sight. You're like, what? Like, you're thinking something like this is war. Like, these are men who have come home from war because there's forklifts moving all these caskets all around. And it's horrible.
it is really terrible.
So that's about it for that. And yeah, cults, man.
Cults, man.
I think it started off okay. I want to say
Again, it's a narcissist
It is.
just having unchecked
Yeah.
power, attention, like that fuel, that narc fuel.
Yeah.
And just thinking that they can do more and more and more and more, and like they're the best person in the room, and like it's.
And they all get addicted to drugs, and they all have sex with everybody. It's like the same story.
Hey, not all of them, okay? Heaven's Gate, none of them had sex. They
Oh, yeah.
castrated themselves. So
Well, not all.
they also took cyanide.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
well, they were a little loopy.
We're all a little loopy.
And they were especially loopy. But yeah, it was an interesting.
It was
It was
interesting.
interesting to see the different perspective and like, how the women
Yes.
shaped what was happening.
I did not
Because
know about that.
Yeah, well, so often you think of like just the men
And like everybody knows Jim Jones.
but
like,
no one knows Marceline
or Annie or
Carolyn.
Yeah.
No clue who that was.
No.
I didn't know he had kids.
I didn't either. Yeah. So it was a different perspective. It was good. It was only about an hour and a half long.
Well, and it was so interesting also to see how involved they were in like these decisions and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. I'm like, how can you make that sort of decision? Like,
Yeah. Especially as a woman with a child. Like, that gets me. The women who have children, I can't imagine making that kind of decision.
yeah, correct. I struggle a lot because I think there's a lot of manipulation
Yeah.
and like there's a lot of that stuff, and I like to think like I would never let anyone manipulate me.
Right.
But who knows?
You never know.
But I struggle a lot with that. Like I think that they should be better. You know, like
I do too.
Your kids deserve better.
Yeah. Exactly. All right.
Adios.
Bye. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at
The Murder Mamas.
and TikTok.
The Murder Mamas 2.
It's the number 2. And YouTube.
The Murder Mamas.
And email us at
The Murder Mamas at gmail.com.
thanks. Bye.